Welcome back to another Buckeye Shop Talk. I'm Brad Goldberg alongside pitching coach Dan DeLucia. We are very, very excited to welcome on the first former Buckeye. He has been with 8 MLB organizations. Let's go through them. Houston Astros, Los Angeles Angels, Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, Minnesota Twins, Miami Marlins, Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Washington Nationals. Oof, that is hard to breathe now. We're very happy to welcome on JB Shuck. Shucky, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Let's talk about what you're doing right now. Kind of a crazy time with, kind of global pandemic going on. Where are you? What are you doing? Are you staying ready? Kind of give us a lowdown on how are you?
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. No, we're down in Florida, so at least we got some nice weather. I just basically been hanging out with the family. We got put on stay in your house or whatever, and we've been hanging out. As far as staying ready, my brother-in-law lives around here who still plays. So we've been throwing every day. I got a little net in the backyard I've been hitting in, and that's pretty much it.
You got to do double time now. One of the big things in all of baseball trickling upwards to the big leagues, which is normally the other way, is kind of the hitting and pitching two-way guy. And I'm sure we'll get into that more, but is it kind of weird having to keep your arm ready and the bat ready where it's normally, just hit and keep the arm a little bit loose?
Yeah, it definitely is. We can get into it more, but it was an interesting off season. It's just kind of moved into learning how to get ready as a pitcher.
Nice.
Very fair.
Why don't we get into that a little bit, because it's something that's rare, especially at the big league level, let alone the college level. I guess, can you give some insight to just the people listening? And again, you were a two-way guy in college, but I tell people no one was really sure how you were going to be drafted as a position player, as a pitcher. And then ultimately you were drafted by the Astros as an outfielder, while could always have the pitching in your back pocket. Can you give a bit of background to that?
Yeah, so like you said, I did both there at Ohio State. When I was going through the draft process, it was pretty much 50-50. Half the teams said they wanted me as a position player, half wanted me as a pitcher. The Astros, when they called, they said, you're too slow out of the windup. We don't want to watch that. So we're going to draft you as an outfielder. But it's always been something that I've kind of kept in the back of my mind. Anytime we ever needed a position player to pitch, I was always the first guy to try to get in line. And I was fortunate enough. I got a couple innings in the big leagues, and it was last year with Pittsburgh. We were getting smoked. We needed a position player to throw, so I got to go in and actually threw really well. Was still hitting 90. I think I got a 91. So afterwards, I got sent down actually a couple of days later, and the new position starting this year. They were bringing in the two-way position because they were expanding rosters to 26. So the Pirates, when they sent me down, they were like, "Hey, we think there's an opportunity for you to do this two-way thing. Would you be interested in going down, getting some innings in?" And at the time, we were under the understanding that it was 20 innings pitched and 20 innings played in the field with 3 at-bats. We thought you could get those in the minors, and that was told to us that could happen. And unfortunately, they kind of changed the rule and made it that they only big league innings counted. So that kind of came out at the beginning of spring training. So now we're kind of in a weird situation where I think I'm still going to do it. I had some success doing it, so we're going to continue a little bit longer and see. But it's going to be a lot harder for anybody to get them other really than Ohtani to get that qualification. So it's going to be an interesting role.
Right. Yeah, and he's a different animal.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, that's some good insight. So I guess, can you talk about, you alluded to, you've got a brother-in-law down there, and I know Mark Melancon has been a brother-in-law to you now ever since you married into that family. Can you talk about kind of the relationship there? And obviously you've been a position player. He's been a pitcher at the highest level. Talk about that relationship and how you guys have, ping-ponged knowledge off each other for these years.
Yeah, it's actually been great. Yeah, like you said, I married into the family, his wife's sister, in 2013. And so we've lived near them pretty much after that. So 7 years. So we work out every off season together. And like you said, it's funny, we used to drive about an hour to work out every day in Texas. So we'd have like an hour. We would just sit and talk baseball. And it was cool because I would get his perspective as a pitcher, and then we'd kind of talk about what I would think as a hitter. And I definitely helped me out a lot to learn how guys like him think. He had a power cutter type guy with a curveball. Yeah. So learning about that in that aspect was great. And then this off season, getting into pitching, it was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. We threw every day and learning I was working on a cutter, and he's got one of the better ones in the game. So we talked about that, talked about how to throw it, when to throw it, and kind of relearn how to pitch. So it's been a big help to get me back into pitching.
Awesome. Okay. Goldie, you got anything?
Yeah, I want to talk about, you have a ton of at-bats on your belt, professionally, college, big leagues, in AAA. Now that you're on the bump, do you use some of your knowledge as a hitter and your thought process and in counts, or what you would be looking for as a hitter now on the pitcher side, thinking through like what an at-bat normally feels like? Is that an advantage or possibly a disadvantage, or do you even use it at all?
It's actually been a huge advantage. For me, it was obviously I have 2 innings up until last year. I think I threw 1 off speed in those 2 innings. So I haven't thrown an off speed since college. So that was kind of the hardest thing to get back into, is learning that. So I think for me, I tried to get the innings as quick as possible when I went down. So I didn't really have the stuff yet. So for me, understanding how hitters think and what guys' approach is and what they're trying to do was a huge, advantage for me to be able to start getting outs quickly and early when I still didn't have my off-speed stuff.
Interesting. Do you ever get in arguments with guys that you play with now about which one's harder now that you've had both under your belt? Like, I know that's kind of a locker room chatter and everyone likes chirping each other, but now that you've been on both sides, where do you feel like the bigger challenge is? Not so much as in, your at-bats outnumber your innings tenfold, thousandfold, but in the actual skill part of it.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to be on both sides now. I can argue either way. But it's crazy. I used to think being a reliever would be easy. You pitch every other day, every third day, whatever it is. And being an everyday guy, you kind of get worn out. But the thing about being an everyday guy, your body kind of gets used to it. You get used to playing worn out, and it's exhausting, but you get used to it and you don't really notice it. And man, when I went into the bullpen in the last, I think about a month of minor league last year, I went full-time bullpen and started throwing on a regular basis every third day. And man, you're talking about your arm getting exhausted. It was a different animal. So it can go both ways. I can argue both sides now, and I can say that both of them are pretty tough.
You wonder why relievers and pitchers are weird teammates sometimes, man. There's you got to pass the time in game, and then you also have to just kind of wear it that your arm is sore that day, because there's no coach, I can't go today. You got to be available every day.
Oh yeah, it's tough.
I want to expand on that, JB. So you said, like, obviously the being new, because you were a starter in college, so you never really came out of the bullpen. So literally that's your first experience probably ever of pitching out of the bullpen. And maybe you could talk about what we tell our guys when building up for a season, or I guess like in spring training. We try to emphasize that endurance over intensity when building up your arms. So that perspective is actually really good for people to hear. How have you taken that experience and transitioned that knowledge into how you prepared leading up to this spring training, which was obviously canceled, but how did that change your perspective?
Definitely, endurance was a big thing. It's funny. I've trained as an outfielder, and being considered like a faster guy, it's everything you do is sprint work, is speed work, is quick agility. So last year I was on the mound and we were playing Arizona, and Gerard Dyson, I faced him. So he hits a little dribbler to first base, and I'm trying to cover, so I bust over and he ended up beating me. And I remember getting the ball, getting back on the mound, and last year you couldn't do a mound visit to give a guy a breather.
Yeah.
So I get on the mound and I'm thinking, gosh, I am freaking smoked right now. There's no chance I can throw, but I got to get on the mound. And sure enough, I walked the guy in 4 straight pitches because I was gassed.
Yeah.
So this year we did a lot more cardio, which was tough because I still had to do sprint work and not lose that.
Mm-hmm.
So we got creative. We did a lot of like Stairmaster, Jacob's Ladder. So it was, you build up cardio, you got the heart rate up, but it wasn't like a 30, 40-minute run. It kind of stunk, but it got me into pretty good shape. So we'll see what we can do and getting back into it this next go around.
Right.
Are you going into are you going deep into mechanical changes, or are you kind of just trusting the organization to help you out? How deep are you going into trying to make fixes or be efficient, or kind of go with the new school? Or are you kind of going out there thinking, here's what I got, can you guys just maybe help me a little bit here and there, versus full bore mechanical changes where you are in your career?
Kind of both. I feel like I was kind of fortunate when I kind of got back into it. My mechanics were always simple. They were slow. I had a slow leg kick. So all I really did was cut that down and tried to keep it as simple as possible. The one good thing about pitching and hitting, it's as different as they are, they're actually pretty similar.
No doubt.
As far as how you kind of use your legs and that stuff. So I feel like mechanic wise, I wasn't too far off. There wasn't a whole lot I really needed to do. The one thing I really got into was, and I'm still getting into and learning and trying to get better, is almost like the tunneling and getting into spin efficiency and learning. For me, I'm not too big on it, but I want to know what I can use to make my stuff as effective. I don't throw 98. I don't have a nasty curveball or slider. So, and I'm old. So for me, anything I can do to get that little bit of advantage and get me to where I can get out, I'm all for. So I'm open to anything.
That's good. We talk to guys a lot about all that type of stuff, but a lot of it, like the Rapsodo, the TrackMan, all these things, they don't exactly make you better as much as they make you more aware, right? They're about who you are and how we can use the best JB Shuck or the best player A, player B, right? So it just kind of gives you what you do well, and let's attack what you do well. Let's be very, very exact about who you are, versus, if you have a high spin efficiency, there's no reason you should be running 2-seamers down there, right? And maybe just give you a little bit more knowledge to what you're doing and be very intentional about what you're doing. So that's good to hear that, even a guy who's trying to keep it really simple wants to know as much info as they can, because, info is king. So that's good to hear that you're hungry for the knowledge, but you're keeping it simple.
Right, and you touched on it. And that's what I actually talked to Dan a little bit about it this winter. I got on the Rapsodo a couple times for some bullpens. And like you said, for me, it's not spin rate to me is whatever, but it's spin efficiency I found is very important. And that was for me. I started learning a cutter because I have pretty good spin efficiency, and I already have a little bit of a cut on my fastball. So that was something that I saw, and I was like, hey, no need to work on a sinker because I can't get it to sink. So let's work on this cutter and see if I can learn a cutter because it's already there. I've got good spin. We can play off that. And that was one of the first things I kind of learned about kind of what I already do and try to get better on that.
That's a good plan of action. Self-awareness, man. We've pretty much said it in every one of these shop talks we've done. We talked to a lot of successful players, including yourself. We've been around either a while or have had a lot of success in the short term, whatever it may be. But the one common thread here is guys, they want to know about themselves and they want to know why they're good, and then they want to just repeat that over and over and over.
Yeah, that's definitely probably the most important out of all that stuff.
You got anything else, Dan? I have a couple more.
Yeah. I mean, I'll save the Ohio State stuff for last. But so you've been with a number of different organizations, and are there some similarities or differences that you see with the different organizations?
Yeah. It's all pretty similar. You guys have been around. Baseball players are all pretty much the same type of people. You got a couple groups in there, but everybody's quite the same. And it kind of goes with the coaching staff too. You got either an old school type staff or you got some of these new guys coming in, and the game is definitely changing. And I think the last couple of years I've noticed, and I don't know if it's the organization or just how baseball's going, but I've definitely noticed that organizations are starting to get into the new style, and they're trying to adapt to how baseball is now. So differences, that's probably it. And, I go back to my first couple of years, and the Astros were really old school when I was there. The Angels, Socha was known as one of the best small ball type guys. And nowadays there's not really any small ball left. So I've kind of got to see both. And I think it's more how baseball's changing and less on how organizations are different.
Good, yeah, great answer. And that's what we're hearing from a lot of guys too, and kind of that old school versus new school, and how it's coming regardless, right? If not already, it's here. But it's a matter of, there's ones that are on the forefront, cutting edge, and then there's the laggards that it just takes some time, I guess, to catch up. But one way or another, I think it's a part of the game. Technology is a part of the game. Data, analytics, that's all part of the game now.
Yeah, it definitely is. And like we just kind of talked about, it's the most important thing is learning what can actually help you and not getting caught up in all the info and all the numbers. Yeah. And I think that's what's some of these organizations that are really good at it, that's what they've learned quicker than the other teams is, we don't need all the info. We just need to know which one helps us the most and which one's the most beneficial. Well, let's capitalize on those. So it's been really cool to see how baseball's transitioning.
Yeah, good insight.
I have a question. You've played a lot of center field in your career, and you've seen a ton of swings from center field, and you've also been in the cages, obviously, darn near most of your life. How is it reading swings as a pitcher? Are you doing any of that? Are you trying to read any swings off of maybe being late or early or front hip? Is that even a part of what you're doing now?
Absolutely. Kind of like we talked about, I think that goes into understanding hitting more. Like I said, I don't have the overpowering stuff, so I'm trying to find advantages any way I can. And we can kind of go back. One of my innings in spring training, and it's funny, I always argue with pitchers. I used to always get in arguments about, the guy just swung and hit a foul ball straight to the right. Like, why didn't you throw another fastball? So I actually had an at-bat when I was pitching, and the guy fouled off two. And I went right back to it, and he fouled off another one. And I went back to it again, and he fouled off another one. But this time he hit it straight back. And that was when I was like, all right, now we can change to another pitch. So it's definitely being a part of my game as a pitcher is watching swings and seeing what guys are doing.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
No doubt. You want to get into the OSU portion, Dan?
Yeah. So talk a little bit. Obviously, we played together at Ohio State, but talk about your overall experience there, kind of how it helped you, propelled you, the relationships you have, and just I guess your experience in general.
I mean, it was great. We obviously, we had some great guys. We had a lot of talent. We didn't really capitalize as much as we should have on that. But the biggest part was having guys around that I thought were great influences in baseball and in life. I learned how to be on my own in college, and that helped me get through minor league ball, especially. But the friendships I got, we have a group of guys of 7, 8, 9 guys. We all kind of communicate still and keep in touch. And I think that was probably the coolest parts about my time at Ohio State.
Right. Even
Can
our
you,
wives or friends.
Oh, go ahead.
Good point.
Can you talk about, a little bit about Ohio State has just such a big alumni network, and Buckeye Nation is so strong. When I played, and we played together in Charlotte, AAA with the White Sox, how it's kind of like connected to you that like Ohio State, when you go somewhere, it's like you could be anywhere in the country and you always get an OH or someone wearing a Buckeye shirt, and it's like it's always somewhere. Do you see that the same? Like you've had a pretty long career and a very good one at that. Have you seen that Buckeye Nation coming out in full force over your career?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. I've played with quite a few guys. I had 2 years in a row I played with the same 2 guys from Ohio State, which was pretty cool. But
Wimmers and Rosinski, correct?
Yeah, we played together in Minnesota and then Miami. So. And we played together. They were freshmen, I think, our last year, right?
Yeah.
But then you always find guys that are Ohio State guys, and if you don't play with somebody that's Ohio State, you always find somebody that hates Ohio State. So you can get into good arguments and good football talk, and it definitely is a great locker room conversation.
No doubt.
There's plenty of that, good and bad, but that comes with the territory.
Right.
I think most people are just jealous.
I was going to say the same thing when we get the packages of gear from the equipment manager John Dunn. Now they're hey, let me get some of that. I was like, what do you say about our football team a couple weeks
Every
ago?
time.
What'd you say?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly right. That's funny.
All right. Well,
You
cool.
good?
Anything else, Goldie?
I'm good, man. I just we appreciate you coming on. You're the first Buckeye we've had on Shop Talk, so that's an honor for you.
Yeah.
Put that one on the resume, JB.
Yeah.
Right. Best of luck, especially, we talked about doing the two-way stuff. I mean, obviously, best of luck with everything moving forward.
Well, I appreciate it, fellas.
Stay safe out there, man. Thank you again.
All right. Wash your hands. Right,
yeah, you too. Hopefully we didn't pass anything through the phone here. So.
Right. All right, guys. Thanks again, JB.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Take care.